Good morning, this is Margaret Applin, and I am going to share with you today ideas for how to use the central medallion or ideas based on my two templates, Medallion Master 5 and 6. So what I'm doing is I'm actually demonstrating a couple of ways to expand on the two templates that I've included in the collection. And these templates, obviously by themselves, they're fine to, they're great designs first of all, but I wanted to show you how I kind of changed those up and kind of push the image that way. So here I've got an example of a few that I did yesterday, and this beautiful item here ends up, from template 6, ends up looking like a dahlia flower, just a really large flower. And you can continue to get those layering of petals through that one template. This item here was the combination of the square kind of medallion and also this star-shaped medallion from template 5. So in addition to that, you can see this this really cool flower right here, which is from the half template here that's on Medallion Master 5. So I've layered that one twice, and then I've actually gone in and added additional lines using the tip of this, but I'm going to show you how I did that. And then, of course, we've got this image right here. And I forgot to actually demonstrate this on my video, my last video, because it was in the center of the medallion and my video got cut off. So I had videotaped it and then had lost it because the tape had, my camera had actually shut off. But anyway, so this is one of the half designs, and what I've done is I've just created the full circle, and then I've gone in and added lines just by using, just connecting lines using the edge of my tape here. So we're going to go through that as well. This image right here, I actually used the template number 5 to do that, and then I added some additional outside layering from template number 4, where I went in and just kind of added, placed that and added an additional kind of flag in between what was here. So I'm going to show you how I kind of go through these. This beautiful little pink one that reminds me of a carnival is actually the just that straight round template from 6, excuse me. And then I've got a couple more here. I just love this one, it's so cute. And that one's from template 5, so it's that straight flower that I again turned and layered. And this funky kind of retro looking design from Medallion template 6, I also did the same thing. I kind of rotated that. Where are you here? Trying to place you in the camera. I also rotated that one and to layer it. So additionally, I wanted to show you that there's a couple of really cool things that you can do just by using any of the shapes in the template. And you can kind of build out borders or stack them very easily, which I know this is something you could do by hand, but it's just an additional way to use the stencils. And here is the one that I did using many more of the shapes from the templates. And you can see there's some from Medallion Master 7, and then there's a shape probably from most of the other templates as well. But it's a cool, cool structure that you could build out using those templates as well. So let's get started on showing you what I did for simply the very first pink design that I did here, the cute pink design. I just love that. So what I did was I used the template 6, and all I did was I simply traced out this design as I'm doing messily here because you're seeing my shadows here. Should have done this beforehand. So I traced out my design here and simply used the lines that are existing from this shape to create a center point, because there is no center point because the entire part of the stencil falls out when you cut it like this. So in order to create that center, what I did was I just used 2 points on the opposite side of the circle. So I'm going to line this one up with this one right here, and I just drew a line through that center. And again, I picked 2 other lines that I could go straight through, and I believe that's halfway. Let me double check here. Yeah, I think. Well, you know what? Next best thing, use the lines right next to it. If it's too early in the morning and you haven't had any coffee and you can't figure it out for sure. Okay, so here I've drawn 2 lines, and I know that these right next to each other are the appropriate center marks. So basically, I can actually see where that intersects right there, and that's going to be my pivot. That's going to be my center point. So, and actually, this was a part of the plan anyway. So here, once you've got 1 or 2 of those, you can just continue to go through the rest of them lightly. So that is how I continued to build out this piece right here. And all of my projects, basically, I'm going in and I'm watercoloring before I go in with my Pitt pen and add the details. And I am using the extra small Pitt pen to do that. I just love how you can get such a skinny line, and because my hand isn't very steady, it kind of tends to add to that distressed, or look where the pen hops off the page and stuff like that. So, but I just thought this was the cutest little thing, and could see this in the center of a really adorable medallion. So that's how I got to that one right there. The Dahlia one right here, it's using template 6. And I simply drew this one out, and the way I did it was I left the arches open, so I only did the petal marking here. So I'm going to do that, go around to do my petal marking only. And then what I did was I marked the small petals the same way on the inside. So without doing that little curve. And this works up really, really fast. I mean, you see how quickly I'm marking this out. And the fun part is to get into the coloring aspect of it. So here I just went along and I did the inside here. It's kind of funky when you try and go around those points. You don't have to capture the point, because you're basically going to know where that point is when, after you take the template off. But you can take your time really slowly and go right over those points. So as you see here, excuse me, I've got my first layer of flowers right here. Now that I have my first layer of flower petals drawn, what I want to do is turn that template just a little bit. So basically, I want to turn the template enough so that those outer petals are now smack dab in the middle of the previous ones. And then and there's a few different ways to line this up. You can tell, and I know you might not be able to see this close up, but the little tips of that inner circle our dead center in the previous round part that we'd drawn out before. And you can see that the actual inside shape of the smaller petal is basically fitting right up against the line that we finished from the upper petal. So this is all going to just kind of like fit nicely together. And so you can line yourself up that way. And so what I did was I went around the circle again, but I'm only adding lines that touch the previous petals there. So I'm going to go around the circle and do the outside. To all of those large petals. And now I can continue around and do the internal petals, the smaller petals on the inside. So basically, when we pull this apart, all these petals are going to look like they're practically joined and sitting in front of and behind, you know, in the layering process that we're doing. And, you know, by adding just the half a line there, that's what gives it the look that it's sitting behind the previous one. So that way you don't bring that line all the way through the petal, otherwise it would look like they're crisscrossing, and that's not the look that we want. So basically the last step to finishing this medallion is to just draw the small petals that are sitting in the front, continue that line on that petal right down to the V point of the inner circle there. And all of those will fit just nicely, and so you'll be able to now come in and do your coloring. And that's a pretty easy way to make a beautiful flower that's going to fit right in the middle of your medallions. So I thought that was a cool idea. I definitely want to show you this one next. So basically, this is one of the half templates, and what I want to show you is how I line that up. So basically, I always draw in the line, and on that line there's a little plastic nib there, and that's just going to identify where that center point is. So the first thing I do is I go around the circle, and you want to capture, you know, these little cross lines in between the round parts. That's very technical, isn't it? So I go around and do that on the first half, and now with that line I can completely flip this. And what I want to do is I want to make sure that that little nib lines up, and you can tell when you're looking at this closely that the template's going to extend slightly beyond where your line mark is on the previous one. And that's right, because that is, your pencil mark is then just going to be on the inside, and it's going to match that. It's going to match that previous pencil line. So it's really easy to do. And so you go around and you mark out the second half of this center. I've got a lot of shadows. Sorry guys, I'm trying to like nail down my my videoing space here, and I don't have the lighting right. So now that I've done that, I've got both circle points there, and all I'm going to do is go in and erase. Oops. No, you need your center point, so don't erase that. I'm going to go in and erase the lines because that's going to interfere with what I'm drawing on the inside. And you see how perfectly those came together. They perfectly meet. So it's a very easy template to use. So basically the next step that I did, and you don't have to use your blue tape or masking tape or anything like that. If you have any other circle template that you want to use, that's perfect. But what I did was basically each one of these lines here is now a point that I want to mark from. So those inner points right there as to where those petal shapes come to meet, I want to put my pencil on my center point, put that circular shape right up against it, and just tip it so that I can join that point to this point. So you can see how I did that. And it doesn't matter where this is. It just matters this way, like tilting from the pivot point to line it up with that next point that you're going to draw. So it's that simple. And you end up with this area that you can fill or, you know, add some additional line detailing. And so you go around the entire circle and you do that. And this is how it comes out. So it's a really cool kind of windmill effect and, you know, fanning effect. And it adds a little more interest to this center medallion part. So on this flower right here, what I did was the template is again on Medallion Master 5, so the same one that we just used for that petal opening here. It's on here on the very bottom. So I'm going to do the exact same thing that I just did with that template. And I'm going to make sure you're in the video. So here, I'm going to go right across that bottom line and catch that little nib guy that's right there and draw out my lines on the template. Not messy like this. And you'll see there's a little indent here because that's half of what is being formed in between those petals. So you want to draw that in. Now I'm just going to flip it again like I did the other one. And I'm going to match up that nib. And you can see when you're looking at this on your table that, again, the template extends slightly beyond where those marks, your pencil marks, were. So it's going to allow you to finish off that section and then go ahead and continue marking out the rest of this. So we're going to do exactly what we did before with the dahlia flower, and we're going to turn this slightly. We're going to rotate it, but it's going to be a little bit harder for you to place that rotation. So basically, if you keep this nib centered right there and you kind of rotate this right here so that the next petals fall right in between the previous ones perfectly here. It's that easy. It's that easy to just continue drawing that second layer, excuse me, on the outside, on the under layer of that first round. So, and then once I've done that, I'm going to flip it over and I'm going to match up my nib again, and I'm just going to center those petals again between the other ones. And because the color of the stencil is so light, you can see right through it to see your design lines. And I know you might not be able to see that from my video, but it's that easy for you to line these things up and continue drawing. So there we go. We've got the entire double layer now. And all I'm going to do is go in and erase that center because I no longer need it. And one of the things that you can do here is using the same template. There's a circle in the middle of these swirly the swirly medallion, which I haven't talked about. And basically you can just center that, which is what I did, right in here, and that's going to give me my first circle here. So you can see that first line in there is basically using that, and then I went in and I hand drew a line on top of that that kind of sat at the very edge of the petals to make that second layer. So you see I just went in and, like, you know, hand drew with the Pitt pen. So this was like the very end that I was doing this part. But basically to get those inside lines, all I did was take the stencil again, and you can see where I did this with my Pitt pen because the stencil's black. All I did was, on finishing, I just went over with the Pitt pen just in that area to create those little lines that are showing up there. So basically this is all I did, and I did it on each one, whether it was the front one or the back one. I just did that. So I just kind of picked a point like halfway, allowed some of those lines to come down a little bit longer, but it just added enough of that additional detail to make it more interesting. So I was really excited about that. I just went in and made some little scribbles here. So that's my additional detail. So on the moving on to this medallion center right here, this is even easier to create because you're just straight using template number 5, and it's already marked out for you. Looks exactly like that. And I'm just going to figure out where I am on the screen so you can see that. And mark this one out. And it's so easy. It just takes a minute. And what I do with these lines is I'm staying towards the exterior of the mark opening. So you can do either. You can follow the interior line or the exterior line. So there's a lot of space in here that gives you some play. So just be consistent in whichever way you're going to mark it, and you'll get used to, you know, what way feels easier. And I personally think the outside line feels easier, but it's completely up to you, and it won't make a difference in the design. Because the way the stencil's cut, you still have to continue those lines down to reach the next ones, and that's just the nature of a stencil. So I tried to avoid as much of that as possible when I was adding these additional designs, but I couldn't help but really like this design with those little banner tab looking things. So here I am. I've got my design, and I want to add an additional layer behind this. But what I did first, and you can use a straight edge to do this, or, you know, you can just continue those lines down to meet the previous line, and most of the time I just end up eyeballing it, but you know how steady my hand is not, so that's risky. But anyway, that's how I continued to build this together. So I continued those edges down on both layers. So you've got the outside layer, you've got that middle layer, and then the inside layer you can really do whatever you want to with it. I sometimes just connect these, and on this one I just drew an additional line split in between those and kind of made just like an octagonal type design in the center there. It's completely up to you how you want to do that. So then what I did was I took Medallion Master 4 that has these additional M's on it, the tabs here, and I chose just where I wanted to place that. So basically this was using the lower piece, and I just decided and kind of was eyeballing where my placement was. And I know it's really hard for you to see this, I'm sure, but the edge of this open box here on this bottom design, so you've got that internal tab piece, it kind of lined up right here, and I just kind of kept that consistent. And you'll find a place, like you'll be able to place your your stencil and say, okay, I know that's what I'm always going to match it up with here. And I went in and drew my line. So I'm going to do that right here again. And another way for you to line it up is actually you could place the very edge of the internal tab at the same point that the tabs next to it are. So that could be an additional way that you can line that up. And you may need to use that as I'm looking at it now. But all I did was I went in and just added that outside line. So this continued my my banner tabs here. And just draw that out. And then all I did in addition to that was take my straight edge and just I used the point where this comes together in the middle layer here with the point right here, and I just added a center line right there. And you could do that all the way through wherever you wanted to do it. I just added it on that outside edge so that I could go in with my pen and create detail within that back tab, because I kind of liked how that laid there on the outside and all the color was on the inside. So again, it's just another option for how you can build out these center designs if you choose to use them. So let's look at what I have here. Okay, I've got this beautiful flower here, and that is Medallion Master number 5, and it's simply this stencil right here, really easy. So again, I did the same thing, and I rotated that stencil again so that I could create the back petal pieces. And on the stencil I did mark the inside, outside and inside of that inner circle here. And when I rotated it, I simply used those little interior petals to mark another line right there. So that's where you can see there's a deeper purple, different purple inside here. So that's basically the same thing that I did on the others, just rotating it. And then on this design, I did the exact same thing here. So basically, I drew out, the first layer mark, and the only thing I didn't draw here was the inside, the top inside of that little piece right there. And you can choose to do that. You don't have to do that. You can make these work however you want to make them work for you. And so simply, once I had that set, I rotated it again, just kind of eyeballing, and I placed that, and then just drew out the pieces underneath there to add that layer on the top, as well as you want to capture that, you want to capture that inside piece so you can see the entire green part sitting behind the teal. And that was how I created that. So I hope you enjoyed this. I'm not going to kind of demonstrate this today. I'll do more of that as I play with those type of designs. But really know that you can use these Medallion Master templates 5 and 6 to build out some really beautiful images on the center of your designs if you choose to, or if you're doing an overall design, as I've done on the watercolor, the accordion journal here. You can always go in and add them as additional elements to offset the larger pieces that you're working on. So, throw a smaller medallion in there and you can build out that design exactly like this. So I hope that's helped you a little bit and saw additional potential that you have within those stencil templates. Thanks.